Hello and welcome back to Life Support. And again, this is part two of our two-part series with the one and only actor, well known in a lot of big movies, LJ, Lewis Johnson. So, this part two is supposed to be about why he has never gotten married. The reason I want him to talk about that is because one of the I want to say the one that is the most popular video right now on my channel is a video where I talked about why I ended a 20-year marriage. And right now it is the highest viewed. So, knowing that a lot of big creators on YouTube have a lot of relationship channels that are very popular, I thought I do need to start putting relationships into all of my guests. So, I want to know, which I guess that is a popular topic throughout, I guess, all of the channels, is relationships. So I'll definitely always incorporate that with all my guests. So let's talk about that. Tell me why, and talk to, you know, the channel about your decision not to get married, or what about that?
Okay, again, thank you for the invite. I wouldn't consider myself a relationship expert, but just to share a little bit of my personal experience, um, I can acknowledge that at some point I was a little immature and a little selfish. It was about me, and so maybe maturity wasn't there as it relates to marriage. However, growing up with two parents, I did and still do appreciate the value of two becoming one, and just how two people can accomplish great things in a union, in a marriage. So I'm not dismissive of marriage, and I definitely recognize its importance. But then I'm also acknowledging that I haven't always had the right maturity and been in the right place to jump the broom.
Now I can say, since I've been out in the dating world, that I have found that there's a lot of guys that are older that
Mm-hmm.
either never been married
Mm-hmm.
or they don't have any children.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, both of them kind of makes me feel as if maybe, you know, that's not the person for me to date. So when you hear about that, meaning you don't feel like that you can, other people may have stuff in common, like you don't know how to secure a relationship or make it work. Because to me, when I hear someone said that they've been married for like 10 years or 15 years, that's the one I'm looking to date. Because I'm thinking, wow, they know how to hold down a relationship. So does that cause you any problems when it comes to dating?
No, I, I think that chemistry is important. Um, I think that as you get older, and let's be real, everybody pretty much comes with a little bit of baggage, however you want to define baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you just kind of have to decide what baggage are you willing to deal with. You know what I mean? Obviously, off the top of our heads, off the top of the head, you probably wouldn't want to. Someone wouldn't want to deal with maybe someone who was a mate or a significant other that was abusive, or maybe someone who's addicted to substances. So there are things that right off the rip, you would probably say no to. Um, but like I said, once you get to a certain point, you kind of are set in your ways, and you just have to kind of decide what baggage you're willing to deal with, and along the lines, um, finding someone who you can have good fellowship with, but also have good chemistry with.
Okay. So again, in my mind, and I'm a person from the outside looking in, then how would you know, or when would you know, that you would be able to even make a marriage work at this point? It's been, I guess, it hasn't existed yet for you. And the reason I said that is because, like, my first marriage, or my only marriage so far, was 20 years. And so I knew what it took to even get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
but I also knew it was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so my next, I want to say, kind of real relationship, I wanted to do the work, but I think I still had some baggage.
Hmm.
And so I'm learning as I grow. Do you do that in relationships? Or have you been able to do that since you have not been married?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, not saying myself specifically, but not everything is for everybody. Like, not everybody's meant to be a parent. Not everybody is meant to be married. I know there are some great men and women in the Bible
Mm-hmm.
that never got married. But the flip side of it, like I said, I grew up with parents that were married for a long time. I understand and appreciate the value of two people coming together as one to accomplish goals. Um, Definitely, I don't think anybody wants to be in that rocking chair in their sunset years by themselves, or not without someone to help them through the golden years. So definitely, it's on my list. Definitely, it's something I desire. Um, and I think also sometimes what could be an issue for men is I think men have things they want to accomplish, boxes they want to check. And I think sometimes maybe um, if they didn't focus so much on checking those boxes and accomplishing things, and maybe letting someone else into their life, that maybe they could either accomplish those things quicker, sooner, faster, or maybe they wouldn't even be important at all. So I do recognize that as well.
Okay. So again, that was a big topic for not just my channel, my video that I talked about marriage was one of the biggest views so far. It's also just a big topic in general. So definitely no. Of course, there are people like myself who's been married like over 20 years, and I had to end it. And if you watch the video, you'll see why. I just had a lot going on. And then there's also people like LJ, this famous actor, who has not even been married yet. So there's going to be people, of course, in between. So definitely look for different guests when we have different perspectives on, relationships, etc. And I want to thank you again for coming here to do part two.
Well,
And
thank you for the invite. Hey, before we go,
mhm.
I do have a couple of questions, or maybe just one question.
Okay.
Um, with divorce rates being so high, do you think that women and men put up with less or have more options today as opposed to previous generations like our grandparents and even our parents? Did they have similar issues and they just decided to stick it out for a variety of reasons? Maybe it was financial, maybe it was, hey, we have kids together, let's do this for the kids, or do you think that maybe newer generations we just give up a lot sooner because we have more options, or just we're not built the way they were built?
And that's a good question because I was watching TV the other day and Lala Anthony,
Hmm.
she was talking about, her marriage to her husband. I think he was a basketball player. And she was saying that all of her friends who are married are miserable and all of her friends who are single are lonely. So you're either married and miserable or single or lonely. So I think whatever way it is, if you ask me personally, I prefer to be married and miserable. So it's two with two heads are better than one. But I wouldn't want it to be miserable. I would want to work on it each and every day. So that I feel like you can put the energy in, you can put the time in, and you can make it work. But if I'm just single, especially on purpose, then when hard times come or things happen, I don't have anybody to fall back on. I don't have anybody to talk me through it and help me through it. And I think that's why a lot of people do, even with me, when I stayed married so long, it's like it just felt good to know that I had another person to depend on. Even though my husband at the time wasn't the most dependable, it was better than nothing. So unfortunately, I think that's the way of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's either married and miserable or single and lonely, but the single and lonely is trying not to be lonely. The married and
Mm-hmm.
miserable are trying not to be miserable.
Now, I don't think we can label all relationships in just those two categories
No, and I don't
because
think so either. But when she said it, I got it. I
mhm,
understood what she was saying. Meaning, there's no really happy place. You
mhm,
have to work on your happy place. So if I'm single, I have to work on my happy single. If I'm married, I have to work on my happy married. It's
definitely
not just gonna come naturally. So yeah, I can be happy while I'm single. I can be happy while I'm married. But for me, being married gives me that extra person to
mhm,
be happy with, to do things with, to go places with. So that's why I said for me.
right. I also think that the old analogy that the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Hmm.
I think there are some wonderful relationships. There are some wonderful
Oh, I
marriages,
believe it.
and unfortunately, we don't see about them as much as we hear
Hmm.
about the bad relationships or
Right.
the bad breakups because those sell newspapers, those sell advertisements.
Right.
And then, reality shows probably haven't helped relationships. Well, I won't say they totally haven't helped, but they definitely have highlighted some dysfunctions we have in some relationships.
Right. But just um, kind of reiterating what she had said again, Anthony, while I was watching her on TV. She's right with my friends too. The friends that I know who are married, they are not as happy. They were pretty much like I was in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at me as a single person. They think, oh, I don't want to be like you either. So, because they know I'm over here alone by myself. So, yeah, whatever you are in, if you're single, you have to be happy. If you're married, you have to be happy. You have to put the work in.
Oh, definitely, and I think we can use that analogy with a lot of things. The people who are single think that hey, those guys over there are married, they got it made. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And the people that are married are saying, you know what, those people over there that are single, they got it made. And
Mm-hmm.
and the people that are tall are like, hey, those people over there
Right.
who are short, they got it made. They don't have to worry about this and that. And
Right.
then short people are like, hey, the tall people, they get all the
Right.
attention. And
Right.
so I think we always tend to think the grass is a little greener on the other side.
Right. And I agree. Again, I've been married before though, so I know
Hmm.
I do want marriage
Hmm.
again. But if you've never been married before,
Hmm.
you might not even understand the pressures you can take off of yourself.
So let me ask you this then. So
Mm.
I'm gonna play the interviewer here. I get a question. Um, what would you do different the second time around that you didn't do the first time around?
That's a wonderful question. I would get marriage counseling,
Mm.
number one. And number two, I would both agree on how we're going to handle issues.
Hmm.
Meaning, there was no agreement. And again, even in my last relationship, I wish we would have had some agreement on how we're going to do issues. That
Hmm.
way, if you have an issue or you have a problem, then it doesn't come out of nowhere. And I think that's the thing with anything. Even if you're at a job, you want to be able to know how you're doing, have an evaluation or something going on so that you can be able to see where you're at. And I think that is something that's missing in a lot of relationships. We're not checking in. We're not, you know,
Hmm.
trying to see how we're going to resolve issues. And so if I'm real mad, maybe I'll have to say red light.
Mm.
And red light means we both need to leave the room and
Hmm.
come back in an hour or whatever. But just have a way of being able to communicate with issues and not just letting things go.
So another question. So we both reside in Metro Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Would I don't know if you've lived anywhere else, but would you say that the challenges of dating or even in marriage or relationships in general, work relationships and relationships in general, are more challenging here in Atlanta as opposed to other places or other places maybe you hear from friends and family, or do you think it's on par with the rest of?
And that's a good question too, because I hear a lot where people will say Georgia, Atlanta is really hard to date. I want to say it's pretty much the same. Now, I haven't been to a lot of places. I did live in Florida for a little while, but I do feel like no matter where you are at, if you have a type or you have a person that you're looking for, um, the way to find it is pretty much going to be the same way that you found the other one. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people meet at work, which is probably the best way, or if
Mm-hmm.
you're in school or whatever. But now people are going to dating apps, and people who are younger go to clubs.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to find them the same way in any state. And if you're looking for that person, it's going to be that same type of person. So it's just a matter of are there more there, which to me quality is better, of course, in quantity. So you can have a million people you run into,
Hmm.
but you're looking for just that one that fits you.
Speaking of dating apps, I know that dating online sometimes gets a bad rap.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's interesting because it's almost like you can kind of at least eliminate some things
Hmm.
from the get go. If you know you're into someone needs to be a specific height, or if you're into them having a particular type of job or education, you can at least eliminate some things off the gate.
Right.
Doesn't mean that person's still going to be have chemistry, going to be perfect, but
Hmm.
at least there's some things you can be like, well, at least know these 3 or 4 or 5 things are kind of where I want them to be. I think in the old days, like you said, we met at work, or one of your friends just
Hmm.
kind of says,
Here you
voila,
go. Yeah.
and or you
Hmm.
had a family member or someone, and like you said, we were younger and we probably met a lot of people in social settings,
Right.
clubs, and outings and stuff like that. But yeah, what do you think? Um, do you think that online dating gets a bad rap? Do you think it's
It does. Honestly, I want to say with anything you do, you're gonna have your ups and downs. So I know with me, my husband I met at work, and I thought that was just perfect because I kind of got to see him or look and see how
mm-hmm,
he reacts without someone having to tell me.
mm-hmm,
And with the online dating, I feel like the scariest part, and that's probably the bad rap that it gets, is that you don't know if this
mm-hmm,
person's telling the truth. You don't get to see them in
mm-hmm,
action. Kind of see and know a little bit behind the closed doors. Ask a friend or a colleague or a coworker about them. So you really have to just
yeah,
trust them and trust their word. And a lot of times, again, that's where the bad rap would come from.
yeah. I know. On some of the other social medias, I hear people say, they sent their representative,
Mhm.
meaning it wasn't necessarily who they were or who
Yeah.
they proclaimed to be.
And I agree because I feel like in any relationship, the beginning, especially if you both like each other,
Mm-hmm.
may be a representative. And when you get deep and down and you get into an argument, then you get to see how things really fold out.
Got you. One last question: kids or offsprings.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be easier to meet someone um, who has kids, or even if they're adult kids, or someone who has never had kids?
And that's a good one too because I've actually dated um, guys that did not have kids, and I've dated guys that had kids. I've dated my last ex children were younger, and I thought that was going to be hard, but it's not. It wasn't because I kind of love kids anyway. So the adult kids aren't really like easy to attach to, like a
Mm-hmm.
smaller or younger kids. And activities and things you can go to with them and things you can do with them were a lot, fun, etc. But I always, and this is me personally, I always feel a little leery if somebody did not have kids because I don't want them to think we're having kids because at my age, I don't want any more. So a lot of times I'll ask them, um, now you're not looking to have kids, are you? Are you sure you're not wanting to have kids? And they may say, yeah. I mean, no, they don't want to, but in the back of my mind, it makes me a little nervous because I'm thinking, this person who doesn't, a human being, would not want an offspring. So I think this person is not telling me the truth and it scares me a little bit. So that's just my personal, and so I hope that I don't continue to be that way because I don't want to discriminate against guys who haven't had children. I just ask them kind of continuously, and it kind of worries me because what I don't want later on is like, man, I wish I would have had children, but you know.
I know I said last time that was the last question, but I do have one more question. So, I've read some data and some statistics to say that one of the number one reasons for divorce is, unfortunately, is finances
Mhm.
or lack thereof finances. So I'm asking you, for a potential husband, mate, or someone that you're dating, would it be important that they were already financially stable or secure, or Could you marry or date someone who was still getting themselves together, um, struggling? Um,
And that's another thing. I'm a super unique person. And from what I see on Facebook and other social media, most of the women I notice they do like want a man with money. You have to have money. You have to be able to take care of me and pay my rent. I'm capable of doing whatever I need to do for myself. So I really want to find a guy that at least we both love each other and we can put paper and pen together and figure out the rest. I feel like finances, we can always figure that out. So if we both need to get two jobs or we both need to start a lawnmower service, whatever we need to do, I feel like finances for me is not a problem. But I can say I'm very rare. So, and any more questions? He's an interview today.
but no, again, I know that you said we'd keep this within parameters. So
Mhm.
once again, I want to thank you for our short interview with part one and our discussion here on relationships in part two.
And I want to thank you because believe it or not, like I said, relationships are a big, big deal. So this video probably will be one of the next viewed, the highest viewed, etc. Because relationships are important, and I get that. So I hope to have more relationship things on life support because, of course, that's a part of life and supporting it. And I thank you for the topic, and thank you for joining us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share the video, and like the video. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next video.